The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services. All right, welcome to another episode of the podcast I was telling Matt, on a snowy afternoon in New Jersey and probably a hot, nice day in Las Vegas. So we're coast to coast today. If you are listening on your favorite podcast directory, leave us a 5-star review. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, like the channel, subscribe, and keep us connecting with cool guests. So you meet Matt in a minute. Let's get on with the show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode. All right, Matt, thanks for coming on the show. You were saying before, it took us several months to connect, so it's always fun after you talk, see each other like 4 months later, and you're like, who are you again? Yeah.
Well,
Now,
thanks
Matt,
for
how
having
do
me.
how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Terrio. Rhymes with Terrio.
Oh, Terrio. Got it.
Terrio.
Got it.
Darn French. Everything's silent.
All right, there you go. So why don't we talk first about share your story about your business background. You didn't just like wake up one day and start buying real estate. So maybe you want to tell your story, and we can learn, and then we'll get into Epic later on in the show.
For sure. Yeah. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I spent the next 15 years of my life in the music business.
Okay.
And,
thank you for your service.
You bet. And I had a small little record label, but I had major label distribution. And, that was right out of high school. I still was able to manage it while I was in the service. And, I took it all the way up to about 34 years old. And this little thing called Napster came along. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember Napster. Probably guilty of using it, actually.
Yeah, just a lot of people were. Yeah. And it turned the whole industry upside down, Yeah. And I mean, right now we're talking about it, and in hindsight, it's crystal clear what happened. But at the time, it happened so quickly.
Sure.
And people just stopped walking into music stores and buying CDs.
It seems logical. Why can't I just borrow your music? I mean, what's the big deal?
Right.
Yeah.
But we were basically out of business before I even knew what it was.
Well, so how did you start a music production company at? What did you say? Like 15?
Yeah. Well, I got my first. I was in musical theater. We did this thing with Flashdance, and it was right at the beginning of breakdancing, and I got into breakdancing, and I got into the music, and I became a DJ, and then became a producer. So that's how that all happened.
Got it.
And I got my first paying gig when I was 17 years old in high school. I made $1,000, and at the time I was washing golf carts after school at the golf course. And I did the math. I was like, God, it'd take me almost 3 months to make $1,000 doing
Exactly.
that.
Right. Yeah.
So that's when my world changed.
Okay. So
Mhm.
so at that point you were producing albums for people, like they
Yeah, there was an
signing
artist.
them to your label, I guess,
There was an artist. Well, at the time, there was an artist that just paid me as a producer. I made a little
just for
drum
him.
beat on the drum
Yeah.
machine, and he paid me $1,000 for that beat. And that's what started it. And I was part of a rap group, kind of like in the spirit of, say, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I was the DJ, and I had another guy that was the rapper. And so we did a little bit of a stint and went around from label to label, and we had a couple albums out. But then when that came to an end, I really saw the behind the scenes part of the actual music business. And so I started pressing my own records and just putting them on consignment in music stores.
Yeah.
I had a little route from LA up to San Francisco, back through the San Bernardino, the Inland Empire, all the way down to San Diego, all the way back up to LA. And I just did that route once a week and caught the attention of EMI. And
Sure. EMI Records, right?
Yep. And they sent me a nice big contract and a big fat advance. And I was off to the races.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice. And it's funny you mentioned Napster, because I had met a guy a while back, I think, to be on the show, and he had come up with this app where you could share Wi-Fi with people, like in your building, like so maybe your neighbor, you slip $20 under the door because and you're like, hey, can I just access your Wi-Fi, because you're a kid and you don't have a lot of money. And he's like, so I was like, so it's gonna be like a marketplace, like I put my Wi-Fi on there and then people pay, and he's like, yeah. I'm like, have you ever heard of Napster? And he's like, no, what's that? I go, that's the company that got sued by the entire music industry because they were sharing music. And in those days, they weren't even charging for it. So if you're not successful, it doesn't matter. You failed, right? But if you're successful, you can be sure that Verizon's going to call AT&T, is going to call T-Mobile, who's going to call Sprint, was separate at that time. And they're all going to collectively sue you for basically stealing and getting everybody to violate their contract with their internet provider. And he like had this look on his face, like, he's like, I'm like, you never had a call with an attorney about it? Bless you. So, yeah. So, yeah, Napster. What was the other one? LimeWire or something?
LimeWire, and then there was a BitTorrent. That's where you could get everything. You get all kinds of
right.
stuff.
Real black market music.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, if vinyl, what we used to call records, my son came in one day, got this really cool thing called vinyl. Like, those are record albums. Didn't come back, and now you get all these special releases. All these stores are kind of like reviving, and they, just looking for older stuff and revive the industry. But you're right. I knew some businesses that were producing. They were pressing albums for people that just went out of business because nobody was buying that stuff anymore. It was all streaming, right?
Yep.
So,
you don't even download it anymore. Like, so even Napster isn't.
Listen on Pandora or whatever you're listening to.
Now you just stream it.
Spotify. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Which, like, when I was doing it, like, your music collection was like a big deal.
Yeah.
And now you don't even collect.
Yeah, I remember I even had like one of those iPods with a ton of memory on it.
Yeah, you had to get the massive memory.
Yeah, and I had all my music downloaded. And then one day, like, it got run over by my mom. I don't know, something happened to it. It wasn't backed up anywhere. I couldn't get it, So now, but now it doesn't matter because it's all just available anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, you want to just download it. All right. So that was your stint in the music business, right? So then we're still, there's a gap between that and real estate. So
totally. Yeah, it was about an 8 or 9 month gap. I went out, and since that was what I did, and I was like, I had to eat, right? So I guess I have to go find a job.
Yeah.
And but no credentials, no certification, no job experience, no references, no nothing.
Right.
And when you go out into the job world like that, your options are very few.
Yes,
they're not great.
Yeah.
And so I naturally just was drawn to sales because you could at least make some real money that way.
Right.
And so I went through insurance and tried stuff with cars and went through a bunch of different multi-level marketing companies and
all the normal.
Yeah. Eventually, where all the people like me go at that age.
I mean, it's attractive when you're young and everybody sells you a boatload of, it's going to be great, and we made all this money, and you should come join us too.
Right. You could live the life too.
I mean, it always worked for somebody at the top, but then it doesn't work for most people. So yeah.
Right. right? And so the grocery store in my area, it went on strike. And so if you cross the picket line, you got $22 an hour. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds pretty good. Because I remember when I was cleaning golf carts, I was getting $3.15 an hour. So
yeah, that's lower.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you could cross the picket line. You didn't care, right?
Yeah, I didn't care. I needed something. And I was like, okay, this will be stable for a minute. And so, but that was a really low, humiliating point in my life, humbling for sure. And I blamed everybody and everything for where I was in life. And I was just like, it's just like the rug was pulled out from underneath me and I had no idea who did it.
Right. And you never went to college or anything?
I did. I was at Cal State Long Beach for, I don't know, a semester or so. And
that was before the Marines?
Right after.
Right after the Marines.
Right after.
But it wasn't for you, so.
No. It just, well, I started making money. So I was like,
well, that's like, what the hell?
I'm losing money by going to college. Exactly. Right. And I'm making money doing what I want to do anyway. So, so it just made sense.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, the grocery store manager, I was 34 years old at this time. And the grocery store manager was the same age. He'd been pushing carts there since he was 16. And we had a talk because he noticed that I was a little bit depressed and I just really missed my money. I mean, I just like, gosh, how am I ever going to
hit it at one point, right?
How am I ever going to get back?
Right. And
he said, Matt, if you want your money back, for people like us, I was like,
oh boy,
I'm not like you. That's what I felt.
You don't want to be 18 years from now. Now you make it to manager.
Yeah, exactly.
And
he said, in 2 years, I'll have 20 years here. And I'll be able to take 70% of my salary for the rest of my life. I was 70% vested for his retirement.
Right.
And he said, but along the way, I've been able to acquire a couple properties, a couple apartment buildings.
Oh, okay.
And he said, the cash flow from these apartment buildings is actually going to pay me more than what this pension is going to be. And he said these words to me, and it's been the foundation of my business ever since. I didn't know if it was true or not at the time, but it certainly turned out to be in hindsight. He said, real estate. It's the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot at creating real wealth.
Yeah, it's probably true, right?
Yeah, it probably is. I mean, if you don't have a special talent or skill or, you're not coming from a great family or something like that. And so at the time I was like, well, I've done a little looking. So the final frontier, no wonder I haven't found it.
Right.
And then I was thinking.
You're looking in the grocery stores.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then he said, for average people, and at that point in my life, I was feeling far below average. So who am I to aspire to above that?
Right.
And then he said, real wealth. And I was like, okay, yeah, I want the real wealth.
Yeah.
So I did what I thought the logical thing was to do, and I went and became a real estate agent. So I did that for a few years. But I had a couple investor clients, and I kind of was able to compare my commissions to their profits and kind of realized like, hey, I'm sitting on the wrong side of the desk.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. And so I made a huge investment in myself to go and learn how to become an investor. And I got introduced to this little book. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before. It's kind of rare, called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Have you heard of it?
Of course, kind of rare. Are you kidding me? That was like my first real entrepreneurs, real estate.
Yeah, it ruins all of us, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then we started playing cash flow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And but there was two things in that book that were really pivotal for me. One was just the concept of passive income.
Yeah.
I speak English. I can take the word passive. I can take the word income. I can put them together and kind of figure out what it means. But to pursue it as an intention, that was like a far out concept.
Right. Because you thought you had to work to make money.
Yeah. Well, I was in the music business. I needed a big bank account. That was my flash, right?
Yeah.
And so was what I did all the time was just I need to make more and more and more money and stack my chips, right? Stack my paper. And so that one thing. And then this other concept where he kind of redefined what wealth was having this passive income coming in consistently so that it covered your monthly expenses.
Right.
Where you didn't have to work.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I never want to start over in life again. I never want to go through what I'm going through right now.
If your assets are working for you, you'll never have that issue. Nobody ever lay you off. Nobody ever tell you to go away. Industries won't fold. Technology won't kill your job.
Yep.
I'm talking as a lawyer where I'm watching technology basically kill my job, For the most part, it's like writes things for me now, which I can use as a tool, but, it's kind of frightening.
Yeah. I've got some amazing
people
creative
always have places to live. We're not
now.
going to change the way we shelter ourselves.
Right. I don't think.
Building supply, right? The way we build and things like that may change, but we're human beings.
Yeah.
We can't be outside. So.
Yeah. A roof over your head is not going to go out of style.
Nope.
Not going to go out of
Maybe
pasture.
the roof materials will change, but
Exactly. Exactly.
correct. Yeah.
But so I just kind of took this whole concept and changed the way that I interacted with money and what a transaction actually looked like. So
Yeah.
every time there was a transaction being made, I was like, okay, I could take the cash, but is there a way I could turn this into cash flow?
Yeah.
Right. And so that was just a whole huge mindset shift for me. And I was able to get out and achieve this rat race escape formula, or this exit, in 3.5 years.
Nice.
So I was able to do what, 95% of the population, per the Department of Health and Human Services, what 95% of the population can't do over 40 years.
Right.
And it's kind of,
Or they don't do it. It's not that they can't. There's no
Well, yeah.
barriers to entry.
They don't succeed at it, right?
Right.
Whatever the
Yeah.
reason.
Absolutely.
But you kind of look at it as like, well, the whole goal is to have the passive income in retirement so you can spend the rest of your life as you get old and not have to work.
Right.
And we're all taught to pursue, like, let's stack and create this mountain of money so it eventually spins off a stream of money. But that's a 40, 50-year plan for most people.
Yeah, it's a slow burn.
Totally.
Very slow. Yeah.
But if you just forget the mountain and pursue the stream first, you can do it a whole lot faster. And that was the big epiphany for me.
Now, do you remember the first property you bought?
Oh, of course. Totally.
Yeah, of course. Okay.
Yep. And it was a thing that was so foreign to me. Even when I had money, I was so illiterate about it and so illiterate about assets and investments that I didn't even know I could really buy a house. That was just something that was for other people at the time.
But you were already a broker at this point, right? Or no?
When I got the property?
Yeah, when you bought the first
Yes, when I bought the property, yeah. I mean, I had let my continuing credit, education credits expire and everything. I didn't renew it, but I had been one.
Right.
And
so you had been part of closings. You had seen people buy properties.
Oh, totally.
Right.
And it's funny because me, who didn't own a house, was sitting there counseling people on how to buy one.
Right.
Which is weird. Most of the agents in our office didn't even own the house that they lived in either.
Right.
But when it was time for you to sign on the dotted line and for you to take that leap, that was kind of a riveting moment. And so, I got that first one done and I was like, oh, this is all it is? Okay, let's just do this over and over and over again.
Right. Just repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you made me think of something. My question was, so when you started getting into real estate, was the goal, like you said, to buy and hold and build and have tenants and collect rents, or was it to, buy and fix and then sell and buy more? What did you think at that point was the way to do it?
So from the book, the passive income was the goal.
Right.
Real estate, I couldn't care less about real estate or not, but that was the vehicle that allowed me to make it happen.
Right. You would have done anything with passive income if it made sense.
Totally. And that's how I got into the education side of things, is that, right at that time, like after I'd escaped, I was kind of looking to diversify my income streams. I went to this one little seminar and it was on, what do you call it? Membership websites, which is like, we all know what that is now, but at the time that was like revolutionary to where
like
you could
subscription-based income, basically.
Exactly. You could record some videos of yourself teaching something, put it behind a paywall, and people would pay a monthly fee to access it.
Yeah.
And so that was the next part. And, I think we got 400 or 500 people in there at $97 a month. And I was like, wow, this is like,
it's real money, right?
Equivalent to like 10 of my houses. And
those were online real estate courses, basically.
Yep. And it was a
dozen videos. Just you would record videos and keep posting them up there and everything.
It was a dozen videos, and then I'd make myself an hour a week on a group. I was on the phone. It was a teleconference because we didn't have Zoom then.
Right.
And so that was it. And that was the thing. So my whole point was I was just pursuing passive income. Just real estate kind of presented itself as the ideal vehicle at the time.
Yeah. But when you started teaching and, building that, let's call it a community, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about? I mean, were there people that said, hey, Matt, I see what you're doing. Would you teach me it too? Or was it something where you said, you know what, maybe if I put some videos up there and start teaching people, I can make some money? Like what was the chicken and the egg type of thing?
Well, it was at the same seminar, and it's kind of the precursor to the pitch was where the guy on the stage had said, wealthy people, they're wealthy because they figured out how to do one thing good. And multiple ways to monetize it. And the logical place for most people to start by being a teacher or a consultant of some sort.
Right.
And by the way, you could do that by buying one of my membership websites and posting some videos. So that was like his bridge to the whole thing.
So
that's
he
how
would
it came about.
sell you the website, basically.
He planted the idea for sure. Yeah. And I didn't know if it was true or not, but it made sense.
Interesting. So when would you say, like, how? Oh, I know what I was going to ask you before. Were you out in Vegas at the time? Like, what part of the country were you in?
No, I was in Los Angeles. I'm born and raised in Los
California.
Angeles, fifth generation. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what was the condition of the real estate market at that time? Was it?
Well, we were just going through the crash, right? So this was about 2010-ish, 9 or 10, not about 9 or 10 when I started the education side of things. And I just thought about this the other day, and I was thinking, social media was not what it is.
No, not even close.
Then. And I just got started as an investor in real estate like in 2006. So I wasn't there through this giant run up and living the glory days. So my whole reference point was the crash. And I didn't know it was like really, really bad.
Right. Well, you weren't high up.
Yeah, I did. Right. I didn't know it was a bad thing.
So it was 07, 08 really when it crashed?
Yep.
Right.
And I didn't know it was like, you're not supposed to succeed right now. Everyone's hurting right now. Like I didn't know that. And I didn't have social media to tell me that.
Right.
And so I just changed the strategy and we got into the short sale business and we started flipping short sales.
Yeah. No, there's other ways to make money.
Gosh, right? And that was like still in my whole 20 years, those were still some of the most profitable years of my life.
Yeah. No,
and,
I knew this guy was a salesman. I think in the insurance business or something. And he, financial planning type of stuff. And he used to say, they tell us that there's a recession out there, but we chose not to participate.
Yeah.
And, if you figure this, because there are always ways to make, to make money. Unfortunately, sometimes it's to other people's detriment because they were the ones that were up. Now they're losing everything. Now, how did you start out? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that I read in your bio that one of your claims to fame is that you have bought real estate with that you've spent either no or very little of your own money buying properties. Is that true?
Yeah, very true. Because after the music business, in 2001, I had to file bankruptcy.
So you can't get a mortgage then.
Yep, I was completely unlendable. So when I joined this little education program, I was really drawn to their whole creative acquisition strategies.
Okay.
And so how you're not going through a real estate agent, you're not going through a bank, you're dealing directly with distressed sellers. And so I had this one mentor, and he was just a great dude, and he really taught me a lot as far as, and I think it was more my mindset at the time, but he's like, because I was just like, how am I going to buy a house? I have no money.
Right, nobody's going to lend you money. That's what I'm asking. Right.
How is this even going to work? And he said, this is what I want you to do. We're just going to move at the speed of instruction. You're going to travel as far as you can see, and when you get there, you're going to see further. We're going to move faster than your doubts. Like he had all these great little sayings.
What the hell does that mean?
I know, right? But it was enough to keep me in action. Like,
right, you're like, oh, really? Moving. Okay, let's do it.
Exactly.
Right.
So I remember that very first deal that we were talking about just a second ago. He said, I want you to just drive up and down the street and just look for houses that are in bad shape and write down the addresses and bring them back to the office.
Okay.
I was like, all right. So I did that.
Yeah.
And while I was out there, I was thinking like, you know what? Am I just being this guy's gopher for free?
Right, exactly.
Right?
He's like, I got this kid. And he goes and does everything for him.
Yeah, he does it for him. Yeah, this 35-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Right? And
how old was this guy?
He's like the same age.
Oh, he wasn't like 60.
No,
that's funny. That's funny.
So
okay.
I did it.
Yeah.
I came back with a few, and one kind of stuck out. And he says, "Okay, now we're going to call this seller, and we're going to write them an offer."
Now, you knew that these houses were for sale, or no? They were just allowed.
No, they were not for sale. They just looked.
They were just a mess. Okay.
So we're not going through an agent. We're not going through the multiple listing service. There was no Zillow at the time.
Right.
And
no competition.
Right. We did something called skip tracing, where we could find their phone number.
Right.
And then we'd mail them a letter and call, and mail a letter and call. And it was a little investigative work at the time. Those tools are now abundant.
Yeah, now it's much easier to get to. You just pay, right?
So called him up, and I said, okay. And my mentor guy, he said, write him an offer.
Okay.
And I was like, but what if he says
what
yes?
What are we offering him? Right.
But also, what if he says yes?
Yeah, where are you coming up with the money?
Exactly. He says, don't worry about it. Just get just one step at a
Just
time.
keep moving, keep going.
Keep moving.
Right? Okay.
Yep. So I did it, and back and forth, just to make it long story short, it got accepted. We were under contract.
Okay.
And I said, okay, now what, smarty pants? And are you going to pay for this?
Do you
He says,
even
no,
put a deposit down? You didn't even have that.
Yeah, it was $100.
Oh, a little deposit. Okay.
It was a small little deposit.
Okay.
When the agent's not involved,
Right,
all
it's a
kinds
lot
of things
easier. You
open
can
up.
do whatever you want. Now, what was the purchase price of the house? Do you remember?
This was $389,000.
Oh, still not. We're not talking $30,000 house. We're talking a $400,000.
No, this was in Long Beach, California at the time.
Oh yeah, no, there's nothing for $30,000. Okay,
and that freaked me out. That was a lot of money.
Right.
You can't live in Compton now for that. But at the
and
time,
that's only because the house was in bad shape.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Right.
So he said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and you're going to research all of these networking events. So I filled up my calendar, like with the Chamber of Commerce and this BNI thing. And then the meetup groups and the, what was the other thing? The Real Estate Investor Association type groups. And you're just going to go, and at every one of those places, they give you the opportunity to stand up and introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do.
Okay.
And he says, so this is what you're going to say. You're going to tell them who you are, that you and who you help. And then you're going to tell them you have this deal. This is how much it pays. And this is how much below market it is. And this is how great it is. And then you're going to give them a little call to action if they want more information on it, just to meet you in the back of the room, and you give them a flyer.
Okay. So he's trying to get you to wholesale this deal, basically.
Well, I guess so.
But you didn't know what that was
don't know.
at the time. Right.
I don't know.
Right.
And so I did that, and, a couple meetings, and that's exactly what it was, that I didn't have to buy the house.
Right.
I could sell the contract.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. And I made $26,000 on that first deal. And that was just kind of like my introduction to this world of creative real estate.
Yeah.
And that kind of just opened it up. And I was like, okay, I think I got it.
But you didn't create an asset that created passive income. Right now, you're just almost like flipping a house, except you didn't take possession of the house.
Correct.
Right.
But at the time, that really came in handy.
Yeah, I mean, it gave you cash to do what you wanted to do,
totally,
right?
Totally. Okay. So then the other approach would be, I got introduced to this whole world that, out of all the real estate transactions that happen every single year, 93% of them involve a real estate agent and are sold for full market value.
Right.
7% don't include an agent and are sold below market value.
Right.
So we're looking for those people. We're always looking for the 7%.
Yeah.
And if you can communicate and deal directly with the seller, as long as you two agree, pretty much anything goes.
Yeah.
And so this whole world of paying for properties with payments opened up for me.
You mean basically seller financing.
Seller financing, yep.
Yeah.
So, and the little close, I still use it today, is like, you know what, Mitch, I know you want more for the house, and if that house was mine, I'd want the same price, but the market is just not going to allow me to give you that cash. But the market might allow me to give that to you if I could give you some money now and the rest later. How much do you actually need right now? And I just close for the down payment.
Right. So you're selling them the opportunity for a higher purchase price.
Yep.
Time value of money move, right? And then you're just saying, but I'll pay it to you over time. Now you don't need financing. They have cash flow. They're getting the price they want, although not all up front. But I don't know a lot of people recognize the difference.
Yeah. I mean, he's like, okay, well, I can at least get my price, and I use the money in cash and did it up. So that was a way. And then the next thing kind of evolved. Well, I have a mortgage. How are we going to deal with that? Yeah. Oh, that's right. Well, don't worry about that. I'll just take over the payments on the mortgage for you.
So, but you didn't assume the mortgage.
Nope. It's called subject to.
So you did like a wraparound type of thing.
No, it's actually, I actually buy the house. I end up on title, and the mortgage just stays in the seller's name.
But almost like you're indemnifying him for because
sort of, but I'm not on the hook.
If there was a default, they would take the property.
Yep, they would take the property, and it would be a bad mark on his credit for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not going to give him $20,000 down in default because I don't want to lose my $20,000. So,
right, of course,
our incentives were in alignment.
Now, why wouldn't the real estate, the property owner, want to just sell the house? Oh, because he couldn't get the price that he wanted.
Correct, or it might have been a little upside down. Maybe he couldn't sell.
Right, there wasn't enough to sell to.
Yeah,
got it. So you would buy it subject to the mortgage, keep making the mortgage payments. There was some equity in there. You would get the equity, right?
Yep,
buying it under market value. So yeah, no, you tell me.
All right, or I take over the payments and then we sell or finance the equity.
Right, meaning you're buying it. Right, so maybe there's $300,000 of debt, $200,000 equity. So you're taking over the mortgage payments, plus you're making a payment towards his equity piece.
Correct.
So he's getting his both things off, right? But he's not off the hook because
no, for sure,
he's still on the hook, right? Exactly. He's relying on you to not screw up his credit. So how many deals would you say you had to look at? I always wonder about this, right? You see these things on TV, these real estate programs. It's great. You're going to be in a boat with women in bikinis in about 3 weeks. It's going to be awesome. And it's never like that, right? And then people go out and they can't find deals. How long did it take, like, to find your first deal and from there to find the next deal?
I would say it was probably about 1 in 40 turned out to be a deal.
So very small. We're talking like, what is that? 2.5%.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. And, and the better you get at it, the better you get in the conversation, the better that you get at explaining how this process works to a seller that has no clue about what you're doing.
Right.
You get that down about 1 in 25.
Right.
Yeah.
You walked into their life. They're like, who are you?
Totally.
So you get better at it. So it is really like honing your sales skill. Right?
100%. 100%.
All right.
But you're buying something, so it's different. It's a little different, right? Yeah. You're not selling anything. You're buying something.
Right.
And so there's a little...
You need people in the right mindset, in the right situation. Maybe they need money. So, but these people have to go somewhere, so they're renting a house or going somewhere else, right?
Yep. And sometimes that's part of the deal. Sometimes you pay for the moving truck so they can get out.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I know guys.
You're just always looking for that 7%.
Right.
Like if you're thinking like, well, who would do that? Because I know there's someone listening to my voice right now. Well, I would never sell my house like that. What a bunch of idiots. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but you're not in any sort of distress right now.
Right. Most people have distress in their life. They got problems. They're getting divorced. They have financial troubles. They have health issues. They got bad medical bills to pay for, whatever. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. It's just an opportunity for you. It's not like you're telling somebody, oh, you have $5 million equity in your house. I'll pay $100,000 for it. And you're ripping them off.
Great deal.
Right,
that doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, no, exactly. And look, in New Jersey, there was a time when the Attorney General and the Consumer Fraud divisions were going after people that were, taking advantage of people that were, getting their houses for, $50,000 when there was 200,000 equity in it. But, I always had the argument with them that when I'd represent these people, hey, everybody's entitled to, they're all adults, they're not like lying to people. They say, listen, this is your equity. I know you need money. We'll take over the mortgage. We'll pay you this. We'll pay for your moving costs. You get $100,000 and you move on. The other choice is you go sell it yourself, which they can do, but they might be in distress. Maybe they're getting foreclosed on. They waited that long, So, but there was always somebody who'd lie,
That's always an option because I always say, you know what? It's okay. I might not be the right buyer for you. Right. I have a great real estate agent that could get you full price and you'll probably have the money in your bank within 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, oh no, I need it much faster than that.
Right.
Okay, well then you have to deal with the investor price then.
Right, exactly.
That's how it works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I think that, there is an issue of the sophisticated buyer, right? The investor guy, which is you, right? And the unsophisticated seller. But what happened is New Jersey has some very ridiculously difficult consumer fraud statutes. So sometimes what happened is the district attorney and the consumer affairs division would like knock on people's doors and they would be like, there's some money in it for you if you testified. And then the people are like, oh yeah, no. Matt didn't tell me that. And he was ripping me off. And, and they're like, yeah, if it went to foreclosure, any of the extra money that it was sold for, he could collect from the state. Right? We had a big trial about it. And the judge was like, yeah, but there's not often the extra money. The banks don't sell the property for fair market value. They auction it off to cover their costs because they can't keep that money.
Right.
And then, then you lose. You can't. And by the way, not to mention, you mentioned before, bankruptcy and all that kind of stuff, and even the foreclosures does taint your credit a little bit for a long time. And it makes it more difficult to operate in the world. You can't get credit cards, you can't get bank loans, you can't get car loans, things like that. So, but the courts don't care about that stuff. They just look at it and said, oh, well, Matt's paying 100 and it's worth 500. He's ripping them off. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of the judges really understood the whole leverage game,
Well, there's a very easy way to avoid all of that is just follow through and do what you say you're going to do.
Right.
And make the payments and everyone's happy.
Right. Exactly.
And win-win doesn't mean
care about it,
Yeah. And I operate from the mindset win-win doesn't mean equal.
Right.
It just means that you both won.
Does not.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I had clients that even had deals where the guy was getting foreclosed, and they'd buy the house and make the payments, and they even let him stay. He was an older guy, he had nowhere to go. They said, listen, you can stay here, and when you want to leave, we'll give you a payment to move, and if you stay there for the rest of your life, he was older, in his 80s, whatever, we'll deal with it then. And, they were building equity, and they had cash flow from other properties and whatever. We actually had one time we're in a state. So the deal was he would get, I don't know, whatever, let's pick a number, $50,000 if he moved, right? So he dies. So the I think his ex-wife or whatever, was trying to argue that, well, he died, so he vacated the property, so he got to pay us $50,000. So we're having this argument that, dragging his dead, cold body from the house is not vacating. Like, that's not leaving of your own free will. I think at the end of the day, we did end up paying her some money because it was just too expensive to go to court and having to fight this and go in front of the judge. You look like an idiot, like you're not a nice guy, and you get this widow and she's crying in court. Maybe you paid her $20,000 instead of $50,000. I don't know.
The court of public opinion is never on the investor's side.
Nope, because you look like the
you're
guy
stealing houses from little old ladies. Exactly.
And sometimes they play it that way.
Yep.
That's one of the risks of your business. It's a leverage game. There's opportunities out there, but there's always somebody who's going to try and twist it around and say, that wasn't fair. She should have kept all her equity. And you're trying to explain to them, there was no equity without me. It wasn't going to happen. They were going to lose the house. They weren't going to get anything. So I think that's a real, misnomer about stuff. But I also think there's a lot of misunderstandings about your business from, from the coaching standpoint. People see these programs that they can buy, and it's on late night TV and all the kind of stuff. And then it doesn't work for them because they don't follow it, or they don't understand it, or, they just don't see it through.
It's a business, and most people don't win at business. Right. So it is a business. It's not easy. It's just, if you do succeed at it, the rewards are super high. So, but it's, people come to me all the time wanting to be their own boss. And what they don't realize is when you become your own boss from, previously when you had a boss and now you're your own boss, but now you don't have any employees like your boss did. Right. You have to be your own employee too. You have to do the work.
You got both sides of it.
And that's a big part that just people think like, ooh, the life of being a business owner and an entrepreneur. And it's just like, no, someone's got to do the work. It's just not this magical thing. Yeah, you got free time and you can take 3-hour lunch break.
That came after. That didn't happen at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? You ever felt like, oh God, I'm throwing in the towel?
Oh, all the time.
Oh yeah, there you go.
There's times all the time where I was like, you know what? How nice would it be just to have a 9 to 5 and check out on the weekends?
Right. Until they lay you off, by the way.
Right. I mean, yeah, but the grass is always greener.
I know, but there's no pressure. You don't have to worry about where it's coming next and what's going on and this problem with the property and this deal fell through. This tenant's difficult, whatever.
And the other thing about this entrepreneurship is kind of like, if I have a job in a factory and I'm putting widgets together, if I work harder and faster, I can get more done and maybe I make more money and I could work overtime and make more money. And what we do, like working harder doesn't always equate to more income, right? More reward.
No.
And so it's that's another aspect of entrepreneurship that can be a struggle.
Yeah, it can be. And it's also, I think, it's foreign. It's not natural to us, right? It's like, no, I should be working. Like, that's how I should make my money. People don't really think about it. They think like, oh, well, just the super rich don't work. Like, that's not really life. But it doesn't have to be that way, right?
Yeah. It's just...
Yeah. All right. Why don't we take a short commercial break, because I'm going to forget about that. And then we'll come back. We'll talk about Epic and what you're doing and how you're working with people and the mistakes you see people make and tips and tricks and how you get started and all that kind of stuff. You shared some of it already, but let's do that. Let me see. Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. Okay, Matt Terrio on the show. How long have you been in the real estate game now?
21 years. 21 years.
And how big's your portfolio right now? Like how many properties do you own currently? I'm sure it changes. But.
Probably it does change frequently, but we're about right around 50 properties, single families, and about 50 seller finance notes. So notes that we own on the house.
You're now in the notes business.
It kind of alleviates the property management issues. So we sell some of the more challenging properties that from a property management aspect.
Got it. But just for people listening, the notes business is basically you're buying and selling the note that's created from the seller financing. And they got property,
actually, it's different. So I bought the house and then I sold it to a resident owner and provided the financing for them. So I'm receiving the monthly payments.
Got it. Okay, fine. So you basically flip the house in return for seller finance.
Yeah, it's a long-term flip. There you go.
Right. But the guy's living in the property. Right? Yep. Because he can't qualify for a mortgage or whatever, so you get better terms.
Correct.
Interesting. So you got 50 of those, and you got 50. So that's about the number. It's about 50-50 each time, up and down. Yeah.
We do a little analysis every other year or so with my CPA because they're both taxed differently.
Okay.
And once you start owning a lot of houses, you get to carry forward lots of losses to the point where you never really get to use them.
Right.
So if we can generate income from another stream and kind of apply those losses to there, it kind of evens out to be tax-free money.
Do you have like a formula where you keep a property for a certain period of time for a certain reason? And then you're like, listen, 7-8 years, we're out of this thing because it's depreciated or something like that. Like
my goal is to own forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have any intention of selling any of these unless there's some tax reason.
No, we do. But we have sold them for sure. We had to sell a lot actually to get us to survive through COVID. So we had to liquidate some assets for cash, but it's never my intention to sell them. It's long-term. And if I'm going to sell it, it's my goal to go ahead and 1031 exchange it into something and
roll it over.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you have 50, I find you have that many, you got some regular tenancy issues. Do you have regular tenancy issues?
I don't have them that much. We've got a really good system in place to where we manage property managers.
Okay.
And so doing that long enough, you start to develop some good systems to make sure that you keep them on their P's and Q's. And
so we've done that. Eviction actions that you have to file and whatever.
Yeah, I just don't have it a lot. We have. I'm not going to say it's easy and it doesn't have its issues, but if I said over 50 properties, I think I know the names of maybe 4 or 5 of my tenants because they are challenges. But the other 45 people, I have no idea who they are.
Okay, because the management company handles it.
Right, and they pay on time, and there's no reason for me to know.
Right.
But those 4 or 5 come up with issues that give you headaches here and there.
You see their name all the time.
But it's a small percentage of them.
Right. Well, that's good. Mm-hmm. Are most of the properties in California, or you have some in Vegas too?
Yep, I'm spread all across the country, really, mostly in the Midwest and the South.
Oh, okay.
Just because it's you don't have to buy them as deep as a discount in order to get them to cash flow.
Ah, right. Makes sense.
Right. If you're on the East or West Coast, I mean, it's cash flow is
high,
really,
right?
really difficult. Yeah, it's almost impossible.
Yeah, because the prices are too high.
Exactly. And the rent just didn't keep up with the price.
Right. And how do you find your like if it's in Texas, how do you find your property managers?
Okay. Property manager. I thought you were gonna ask something else.
Okay.
Just a network. I joined a bunch of masterminds. I belonged to them all years. I probably spent $100,000 a year on those types of communities and networks. And it's one of the greatest business and life hacks. Really, is getting around other people that are successful in what they're doing too.
Yeah, definitely. That's all the guys I know are successful. They want to be the least successful guy in the room.
Totally.
Because they're like,
I want to be lost.
I don't want to be there with the guys just barely making it like me. I want to be with the guys, making $100 million a year. And so if I get to 30, I'd be happy. Type of thing. All right. So then we're talking about how Epic kind of came about. You kind of started working with people. So what is a common thing that you see that people are doing wrong, either to get into the business or in the business as an investor and a property owner?
We kind of talked about it a little bit at the end, like trying to make this transition from employee mindset to entrepreneur mindset.
Okay, so it's definitely a mindset.
Right. So that's a big deal. Quitting the job too soon is probably another one.
Right.
There's so many advantages that come to you inside of real estate when you have a W-2 income, right? And when you have a job. I mean, because when you leave, I mean, you're saying goodbye for a couple of years to your lendability from banks.
Right.
Saying goodbye.
You need an income to get a mortgage in most cases.
And you need a couple years of tax records to show that you know what you're doing.
Right.
You say goodbye to like insurance and stuff like that.
Right. Health insurance is a problem when you're on your own.
Yep. And if you do it too quickly and you don't have a good history of generating a consistent income, you can easily get into financial woes and go back to that crappy old job again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good advice. People don't realize that. Like, they come to this country from somewhere they have no history of anything. They can't. They can't get a mortgage, or your spouse dies and then you can't refinance your mortgage because you don't have a job. Passive income isn't enough.
That I see those mistakes all the time. I also see people, if they come in and say, you know what, I'm going to give this a try for a minute. I think that's the totally wrong mindset. Like real estate, based on which quote you or which source you reference,
right?
It's produced more wealth for more people than anything else. And so we know it works. Now it's just, are you going to work? Right. So if you come in with this thing, I'm going to give it a try and see if this real estate thing works.
You can't dabble in it.
Yeah, you can dabble in it. And it shouldn't be like, hey, I'm going to get 60 days, 90 days. If it doesn't work, I'm out.
No.
Well, a lot of times you don't even get your first deal inside of 90 days.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really bad approach. If that's your mindset, don't even start. Okay? Right. Don't even start it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, like, people get a little too excited and go too fast and essentially go broke on marketing.
Like building a solid foundation versus thinking, I want to get there fast.
Yep. And today's day and age, there's no shortage of places that are willing to take your money for advertising and marketing.
Right.
You can go broke on marketing pretty darn fast.
Right.
So I think people want to succeed really fast. They're really excited, and they just might blow their whole wad that they had saved. Yeah. And and 3 months down the road, now they got a cold call. Now they have to knock on doors, and then most people aren't built for that either. So
that's a hard move.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those are all good observations. I think people are, you owned a condo or a townhouse with your wife, and you moved out and you decided to keep and rent it, and it was a nightmare. And that was your experience in real estate. Like, that's your example.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not a good example. You didn't buy it for that reason. It wasn't something you looked at as from an investment standpoint.
Yep. And a lot of people from 2007, 2008 with those types of experiences.
Yeah.
You get these life lessons, but you walk away from real estate with the wrong lesson.
Right.
Right. You forget why you got involved in the first place and why it made sense then. And then you're like, oh gosh, I had a bad tenant. This thing sucks.
Right.
Like, no, you do it again. Just don't get a bad tenant this time.
Right. It's not like everyone's leaving the real estate business because the tenants are so bad. People are making money.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So do you find that, what was my question for you? You just said something. I don't remember, but when let me think of what I was going to ask you. We're talking about people and investing, and do you find it difficult? Like, do people understand the part of analyzing a property, like whether it's a good investment or a bad investment? Or you find that's easy to teach, or probably easy? It's certainly easy for you to understand. You've done a lot of deals, but the question is it something that is easy for people to pick up, or you find that people struggle with that?
Yeah, it's easy to teach. It's difficult to grasp. You know what I mean? Because it is very basic. It's just pluses and minuses. And as a real estate investor, you're going to make your money either from the equity position and or the cash flow that it generates.
Right.
So you just need to analyze, is this going to make me money? Can I sell it for more than what I bought it for? Or if I hold on to it, can I make more each month than it costs me to hold it? And but there's that part of it. And the other kind of how I approach this in the education side of things and teaching people this is like, if you take a certified appraiser who does this for a living, and now the way that the appraiser industry works, you have to work as an apprentice for 2 years before you can ever go out to work on your own, thanks to 2008. And so these are people that are worked 2 years under an expert. This is all they do day in and day out for a living. And if you go and hire 10 of those people to assess one property, you're going to get 10 different answers.
Yep.
Right.
Art,
so
not
if they
science.
can't get it right, don't put so much pressure on yourself to get it right. And the way that real estate contracts work, they all come with a contingency clause of some sort in place. And, if you get into contract and it turns out not to be the deal you thought it was, the contract gives you the permission to back out.
Right.
So no one has ever died from getting into contract for too much money. No one has ever gone to jail for getting into contract for too much money. So just know your contract and know what your exit plan is in case it doesn't work out, and make as many offers as you can.
Right.
And so don't let the evaluation of a property stop you, because it's such a fast-paced industry now. If you spend too much time analyzing, too much time on due diligence before you're in the contract, you're going to lose the property. Someone's going to come in and they're going to take it from you, and you're going to have to start all over again for a bunch of unpaid work.
Right. It's not like inventory in general. Then you narrow it down to the 7% you mentioned, and then it's got to be very low.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you tend to use attorneys on these transactions, or you guys close with title companies?
Yeah, they're traditional transactions. Yeah. I'm not sure if you have to. You might know that better than me, but I always have. I've never done a deal without one.
Yeah, it's just you don't have to use attorney anywhere, but it just depends on the state. In New Jersey, North, we tend to use attorneys. South, we don't. Florida, they don't really use attorneys. Their contracts are, a lot of those contracts in those states, they're drafted more to protect the parties involved, so things don't blow up in a big, like you can walk away, even if it's well into the deal, you lose your deposit. So it's not, nobody's suing you for it.
Yeah, 80% of the pages there protect the brokers anyway. So.
Yeah, that's why the attorney. Well, so that's interesting you bring that up, right? So as a real estate attorney, I do a lot of transactions in New Jersey. We take that stuff out. So if you're doing your own transaction, it's all in there. And then you bring in a lawyer because you're having a problem. You're like, well, yeah, the broker has this clause in there that says he gets paid whether you close or not.
Right.
Like,
right.
What?
Exactly. Take all the broker stuff out of there.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like, if it's going to be a state where people really don't use lawyers, the standard contract has to be well put together. All that stuff's going to be taken out of it.
Well, we use title companies, and we use escrow officers to do it. And I guess they're pseudo, attorneys.
Yeah, but they don't represent you guys. Like, I don't do settlement anymore. All the title companies do it here.
Well, that's a good question, because I've never done anything in the Northeast, and it's mostly real estate attorneys in the Northeast.
Yeah.
And does each buyer and seller have to get their own attorney, or does it work like a type? They do. Okay.
They should.
So you have somebody representing you then.
Yeah, because the title company makes it very clear that we'll be the settlement agent, but we don't represent either party. You can't talk to our lawyer. So sometimes things blow up and people call me and they say, hey, can you jump in on this? But I haven't teed it up by removing the things from the contract that are going to be problematic. Or they haven't given notice. I know they have time of the essence rules out by you, where you haven't closed, you haven't closed. Yeah. They haven't done any of that stuff. It's just a mess. So, yeah. So it's not, it's not, I don't think it's worth the money that you save. Out here, it's a commodity. I charge like $1,700 for a closing. Maybe guys are charging $2,500. So it's not, it's a flat fee. You definitely lose money on the deal. So getting the attorney out of the loop is not saving you a lot of money. Getting the broker out of the deal saves you a lot of money. You can't get around the title company because you need title insurance, whether you're lending yourself and they're holding paper. I mean, there should be title insurance. But, the attorney's like the smallest piece, and then people don't use attorneys, and then they're like screwed.
Yeah.
Just not, penny wise and pound foolish. It's not a good use of your time, but at this point in your career. So
right. I learned something today I always say there's a lesson in every transaction, but I've never had to use a real estate attorney to close a transaction. And I was under the impression that the attorney acted in place of the title or the escrow officer. So
not out here.
Not here. Okay. No. Got it. All right. Learn something every day.
Right. Exactly. That's the last thing I want to do is have to balance the thing back and forth. In and out sheets is a nightmare. I got to check it, but I don't actually write the checks and, finish it all up. It's just not worth my time or liability, really. It's the liability that's the issue. It's not my time. You screw it up and you're on the hook for the whole thing.
Yeah.
We once did a deal where the guy was selling the property. I don't know what happened. The title company, the mortgage did come up in the title search, but somehow, I don't know, it didn't make it to the closing statement. So then they closed the property. They sent my client all this money. Client calls me back. She had moved out of state, like up, I don't know, somewhere in New England. And they're like, now what do we do? Do we use the money to pay off the mortgage? I was like, what are you talking about? Now something was going on. Like I was traveling, I don't know, whatever it was. And I said, listen, here's the closing statement. Take a look at it. I'm not telling you it's right. I can't see it on my phone, whatever it was. They don't know what they're right. So the title company didn't put the mortgage on the closing statement. So they're off in like, I don't know, Vermont or something where there's no banks, right? So they were like, listen, it's going to be like a week before we can get to a bank. And why are these funds? And there was penalties, because the thing was the closing thing. And the title company's going crazy. I'm like, listen, guys, you're the ones who didn't put it on the closing statement. And the people didn't know. The sellers were like, I guess we pay it off. I don't know, right? So send them $1 million and they owed $500,000 to the bank,
Right.
So they're like, well, we can't go there now. We've got a little kid here. So when we get there, we get there. And there was definitely some issues.
Got it.
So yeah, it's a little crazy.
Yeah. It's a wild industry. And like I said, you're going to experience something in every transaction that you've never experienced before.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, and this goes for a lot of businesses, right? I think that if you just take it that, hey, if I break even or lose very little money on my first deal and I learn a lot, that's a step forward.
Yeah.
And if you do 2 or 3 or 4 deals, you will become comfortable with the whole process of making an offer, writing a contract and closing the deal and recording things and what the title company does, and all these players that are involved that I take for granted. And you're like, do I bring a bag of money to the closing on Tuesday? I'm like, no, you got to wire the funds and things like that. Can I just bring a personal check, for $897,000? I don't think so. Yeah. So, but they don't get it. So, yeah. So I think that's what it is. I think if people approach it, like you said, like a business, their first deal is probably not going to go like they think it's going to go. So expectations, I think, are a lot.
But it can.
It could, right. I'm not saying it won't. But if you expect it not to go the best, then when it goes real well, you'll be like, oh, this is great. Then you'll be even happier.
Yeah.
Totally. So just to manage your expectations so you stay with it as opposed to saying, oh, this didn't work. I'm not doing this. Is stupid.
Exactly.
That's what people say.
A lot of people say that. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to go back to my job. That's smarter for the next 40 years.
Right. So I assume I could ask you what's up next, but I assume you're sticking with it, right? You're on the path. You keep your 50 properties and your notes and keep teaching people. And how can people interact with you and learn about Epic and get involved and see what's going on?
Sure. I mean, if you listen to a podcast, we got one of them too. We got the long-running real estate podcast on the interwebs. We started in 2009. And so the Epic Real Estate Investing Podcast.
Okay, we'll put a link in the show notes.
Just released my fourth and final, hopefully my final book in the last couple months ago called Escape. And that's on Amazon for $19. But I got a deal for you today. If you go to myescapebook.com, it's only $4.
Okay.
And I created a course for Robert Kiyosaki for his community.
Nice.
And he said I could give that away as a free gift with my book. So you got to pay tens of thousands of dollars to get into his group to go see it. But if you buy the book for $4, I'll give you that for free too. So you can go do that.
Nice.
And then Epic Real Estate.
We can put that link in the show notes.
Please, that'd be great. MyEscapeBook.com.
So Kiyosaki, he's still around? I figured he must be an old guy.
He is. I love him. I owe him so much from afar. We have been able to meet a couple times. I've been on his show. He's been on my show. And but he's getting up there, and he's getting a little wild in his theories and his ideas right now. And he's been predicting the world is going to collapse for about 16 years now.
Okay.
So hasn't yet. So I think we're in good shape. Eventually he may be right, and he'll say I told you so.
Right.
But he's done so much for the world of entrepreneurship for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Matt, I can't thank you enough. If they're listening, check the show notes. They can get all the free stuff. And I assume you're on LinkedIn and all those other places too. And it's the Epic Real Estate Podcast.
That's for Epic Real Estate Investing Podcast. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure if they did a search, right?
It'll
Spotify,
come up. For sure.
It'll come up. All right. Matt, have a great weekend. Let's hit the show, hit the credits, hang out. And I appreciate you coming on the show.
All right. Thanks, Mitch. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinhacker and produced by Beinhacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.